welcome to Scrappin with Sheri and project recipe number 30. Now, I'm going to do something I don't typically do, and that is I'm going to use a background that is not a Creative Memories paper. I had a friend who gave me a ton of this paper, and it actually works well with this Gem Tones collection, so I decided I would use this as a background because so little of it will show anyway. Now, again, these papers came from the Gem Tones collection. I'll be using this floral that ties everything together and then both sides of this. And I went ahead and laid out my pictures because I developed them based on the sizes in the recipe. But I want to cut the borders first. And I want to do that first because I was playing around with the border and I want to show you something that I'm kind of working with here. I'm using the Shutter Love Punch. This is probably one of my favorites, and these events are all around their anniversary, so I felt like it was good with the camera and the heart. But I wanted to use the white shimmer paper. Now, as an aside, I think the white shimmer paper is not very white. It's not quite cream, but it's a little bit not quite white. And it's very thin, so my Shutter Love Punch kept catching on it, and I was messing it up over and over. So what I've done is I've folded a piece of that over on top of itself to give me a double thickness. I also find that with some of these punches and with a double thickness that the punch catches if you just go down, boom, boom, boom. So I've alternated every other one in the punching, and then I'll go back and repunch those extra sections in the hopes that I'll keep it from flipping down and catching inside the punch itself. And I am having to kind of maneuver this. There's a lot of parts in here. So this is not one of the easier ones, I think. But I sure do like the look of it. And I'm just trying to get this one last punch without messing everything up. You can see it's catching on bits and pieces. And sometimes you have to punch to get out any excess that may be catching inside there. Let's try one more time. I know you don't often see these kinds of issues on camera because a lot of times I'll punch my borders ahead of time anyway. But I wanted you to see what difficulties I was having and how to work around those a little bit in the hopes that it'll help you as well. And we did get our punch done, so yay. We got a complete one without tearing up all the pieces and parts. Now let's get on with the cutting part. So we got our pictures, we've got our punches, but we've got to make all these little pieces right here. And I want to look at the sizing. We've got the punch border. I don't have to have the mats here. We do have to have this part here. And we're going to use the reverse of that. So I'm going to be going with this orangey color and then the reverse with the green. I was trying to pull out some of the greenery in her dress here. It's a little brighter than the green in this dress when they were at a wedding, but I think that'll be okay. So our 12-inch trimmer, and we're cutting this 3.5 by 12. And I need 2 of those 3.5 pieces. And because it says reverse, but we don't exactly know what we're doing here, let's go back to our instructions over here. And it's going to tell us that for G and for J, let's see, for strips G, H, and I, first cut the 3.5 by 12-inch strip. Place the strip on the 12-inch trimmer at the 45-degree angle, 2 inches from the top of the trimmer. 45-degree angle, 2 inches from the top of the trimmer. That should be right here. 45 degrees. Don't you love having that 45-degree marking on there? And then 2 inches from the top, which is putting it right on our little cutting line. And then we're going to cut that. And that creates our corner piece. Then we're going to rotate this strip and repeat it for the other corner at the bottom. So we're just going to flip that upside down, line it up with our cutting line, line it up on our 45-degree angle, and we're going to chop that. And that gives us 2 of these pieces, and I'm going to use the green on that side. and then it gives us this piece. I'm checking to make sure it looks right, and I can't decide if it does or not, but I may use it on the other side. So repeat to cut pieces J, K, and L, but turn it over to do the reverse side. So you could do these at the same time if you wanted to, if you'll put the papers face to face. Obviously, it was easier for me to try to do it one at a time. And I hope nope, that is not right. Because I need that same angle right there. Boy, that's tough, y'all. When you start doing angles and reversing and flipping and all that. But I do need this angle to go the same direction. So let's do that. This one's going to be wrong. But hey, I have another 3.5 inch piece. And we'll just make it work. Let's start again on that one. And see if we can get it right. We're going to go here. And then we need the same angle. So we're going to go. All right, so instead of flipping it over, you're going to rotate. And it probably said that in the directions, but sometimes I just have to try it myself first. And that one looks correct. All right, we'll just have extra parts. So we've got those done, and let's see what it tells us to do. Turn it over, repeat it. 4 pieces. O, P, and Q, cut a 2 by 12 inch strip. So that's going to be a totally different color. We're going to add something else completely in there, and that's not what I was counting on. So to do these pieces, O, P, Q, R, S, T, I'm pulling another shade of this peachy color. It's a little bit lighter, and it tells me that I need 2 by 12 inch strips. So let me cut those. I do think in my mind there would have been an easier way to do this, but I'm not sure. And let's see what it tells me to do. Cut a 2 by 12 inch strip along the long side of the align the long side of the strip with the 45-degree line and the bottom edge on the 7-inch mark. The bottom edge, how do you get the bottom edge on the 7-inch mark? Right there, okay? Cut into 2 halves. There would be one end with a straight edge and one end with an angle edge. And you know what? This is one of those that we can do 2 at a time, but we need to flip them facing each other. So we're going back to our 7-inch mark, our 45-degree angle, and we're going to give that a cut. There will be one end with a straight edge, one end with an angled. Stack the halves together to make the next cut on the remaining straight edges. Line the strip up again with a 45-degree mark. Placement will be at the 2-inch mark. And I think that's going to be this way. Oh, y'all, all of this is just killing me. This way. We're going back to our 2-inch cutting line. And we're going to cut these little corners off. And I'm just not sure at all if this is right. But we're going to try it and see what happens. Okay, let's just lay it out and see where we can get. Wow. I probably would have just cut strips and cut them off along this line and layered them and been done with it. So I've got this. I did want this to be a part of it, but somehow I've totally messed that up. Okay, y'all, I'm just going to tell you, I have had some major snafus off camera, and this is very difficult to me. This one has just got a lot of measuring, a lot of angles, a lot of cutting, and I'm not always good with that. So let me just kind of back up and give you a synopsis of where I'm heading. This piece right here is actually going to end up being kind of a background for this because it's really wide and it's bigger. That's going to kind of be where things are placed onto. So for that, I want to use my floral, but it's going to be going sideways like this because when it's laid out, I want the flowers to be upright. So I need to cut this at 3.5 by 12. This idea doesn't look at all what I thought it was going to look like as far as how the pieces are arranged. And that's really confusing me. So I'm going to line this top edge up on the cutting line. And this edge up on my 45-degree angle. And I'm going to cut. And then I need to do the same angle again. So I'm going to just rotate it around. I started here, I'm rotating to here. And again, I'm going to line it up on that cutting line and my 45-degree angle on my 12-inch trimmer. And cut it. So I have those two the same angle. They're going to go across the bottom of my page. It's going to be beautiful. But to do this one, I need to flip it to the opposite side to do that. So I'm going to line it back up on my cutting line on that 45-degree angle. And we're going to cut, rotate, and cut it again. So these are going to go like this along the bottoms of my pages. So we've got that part done. But now we've got to cut these 2 by 12s that are going to layer on top of that to give us a little more color. And I'm just going to show you, I've got all this scrap where I've been practicing this. So we're going to be able to add lots of pieces and parts when we get to actually laying this piece out. So for this other piece, I'm going to use this lighter color. This is a lighter peachy color, and I need 2 by 12s for this one. So I'm just cutting these at 2 inches. This one to me is a little bit trickier, but it tells us in the directions that we align the long side of the strip with the 45-degree line and the bottom edge on the 7-inch mark. So basically I'm putting the bottom edge here and I'm just cutting that along that line. And that gives me these 2 pieces right here, but we're going to have to cut off this edge to make our angle the same. So if we do this and then rotate it, we're going back to our 2-inch mark. Yeah, are you sufficiently lost? Because yes, I am. We're going back to our 2-inch mark, which is also the cutting line. And we're just going to shave that corner off. Now that makes one of them, but then to do the opposite side, we're going to have to do it from the back side. So we're going to put this at our 7-inch, our 45-degree angle, cut. We're going to put these 2 together. It would be this way, rotate it around, and put it on the cutting line. Wow. And that pattern is messing with my eyeballs. And here again, I mean, I messed this one up, so I've got all kinds of little pieces and parts laying around. Let's see what we can put together to make this look like it ought to look. I've got my background papers. And what we're going to do is put this down along the bottom. These, let's see if I can get my directions right, are going to be fill-in pieces, but they still feel so very wide. I feel like that just covers up so much of my floral design that I really wanted to show through. What do you think? I think I'm going to cut these down. Let's just mess you all up completely. But these are just so very wide. And you know, occasionally the directions could be wrong. I'm not saying these are. I'm just saying for my look, I think I'm going to like it better if I go to about a 1.5 inch. And make that a little bit skinnier. And then we have these other pieces left over. That I can add right here in my corners. And I was going to use the back of it and use some green, but I really like keeping it in these peachy colors, I think. Now, I think that to me is very pretty. So I'm going to tape that down. I'm going to mirror it on the opposite side. And then I'll come back to you and we'll finish these pages out. So I finally got one side finished. I think the effect is really, really pretty. But let me show you how I stuck it on the other side. So maybe it'll help you if you're having any issues at this point. So I'm going to stick my little corner pieces down. Or this corner piece anyway. I'm just going to start from the inside edge and build it out. I think if I had looked at this page and not read the directions, I would have done this totally differently. And I'll show you what I would have done in just a second. Because if you've watched it all the way to this point and you're following along with me, you may be frustrated because I'm on the verge of frustration. I need a little repo tape on that corner right there because that little edge is not sticking down. And it is going over just a touch, but we'll trim all that up in just a minute. This is just, this is one that's very fiddly in my opinion. It just takes a lot of pieces and parts, and I don't think it needs to be that hard. So I want to see if I can make it just a little bit easier for you. I've got a bad edge right here that I really want to go off the bottom, but I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's something anybody's going to notice except you and me because I've pointed it out to you. All right. And let me stick this little camera border down. I'm going to use my repo tape for that. And you'll notice on the recipe, it called for using an attached border where it's just a knockout. But I didn't do that. I really liked this particular punch, and that's what I wanted to use. So that's what I did. And one thing you're going to see when I put these together is that I did my borders opposite one another. Like on this one, I had the camera end here, and this one I have it here. But my corners do meet in the middle, which was important. My designs are all going the right direction. I do need to trim off just a little bit with this 12-inch trimmer, where I had a little bit of overhang. I think this is going to be one that I would say, yeah, that's really pretty, but I would never do it like this again. So how would I do it if I were doing this without reading directions? I would have cut about 2-inch strips, just straight strips. I'm going to make these straight. So about a 2-inch straight strip. And I would have made it 2 inches by whatever this measurement is. 3.5 or 4, because you need room to angle. I would have cut a 4-inch border here. And I would have just cut strips, and I would have just angled them on there. And then cut off the top edge and the bottom edge and called it done. To me, cutting all those angles was very difficult. And I don't know that that's something I would do again. 2 inches is probably too wide too. But if this were a straight strip, you could just layer straight strips all along here. And then cut off the bottom, cut off the top, and have you a border done. Anyway, it's pretty. It's done. Still got a little edge right there I need to take off. But let's put the pictures on, because the pictures always make me feel better about everything. And again, they've got, that was one event. Then some friends took them out for their anniversary. Then they went out for their anniversary. And all of these are from their anniversary. And you can see when I developed the pictures to be 3-inch photos, these little ones. These are full 4x6s. But now all I've got to do is line them up along here, and that's the easy part. So let me do that real quick, and then we'll finish this page out. Work from the 2 outside ones in towards the middle, so I can even up that middle spacing however it works out. I did not have another picture to go there, but that will be easy enough. I can just make a square to go there, and I can do the journaling. I could make it just a decorative square if I didn't really want to do journaling. I mean, this is their life, so I don't have details on all of it, but I do know the names of the people at the wedding. I can find out the names of them. And I do know that this was their 3rd anniversary. So maybe a journaling box right here using one of those colors. So let's see what we got left over. Man, if you could see my workspace, you would see all these scraps everywhere, because it is crazy over here where I have cut and played and cut and played. This one was probably one of the harder project recipes. If I were going to do it again, I would do it totally differently. And that is just a little bit large. Maybe a 2 3/4. It calls for a 2 3/4 photo. And it calls for the mats to be 3x3. That just seems a little bit big. I'm just going to shave it down just a touch. And then I'll put a journaling box inside that. All right, so finally, after much weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth, we have got this layout done. It is pretty. Not one I would do again this way, but if you'll watch along after the video, I'll show you how I would do that using those other strips that I think would be a much quicker way to do that. So you'll see the finished product of this. Then you'll see my little quick, I'm going to do it as a quick reel, so you'll just have to watch very quickly. You'll see how I would do it if I were doing this again. And until I see you next time, happy scrapping. So you'll need your background strip cut at 3.5. You'll need some contrasting colors. And I'm going to use this to make my corner blocks. So I'm going to make a 3.5-inch square out of this. And then I'm going to cut this right through the middle, corner to corner. That takes care of these 2 parts. And then I've got this strip of leftover paper. This one is almost 1.5, but not quite. Let's piece this down and see what we got. And I'm going to use my repo tape just to get all these corners tacked down real good. So we've got a corner, my corner. So we've got our 2 corners. Let's just add some repo tape on this pretty liberally. And I'm trying to keep my angle about the same. And just tape that down. I'm going to do a quick cut with my scissors. And then we can tape the other down. And then all I've got to do is go back with my 12-inch trimmer and cut off the excess. So if I were going to do that border again, I would do something more like this. You can tell I'm not exactly even right there. Embellishments help that, or I could take it off and redo it. But I think that's an easier way to do this layout if you want to give it a shot. Happy scrapping, y'all.